The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the show. It's game day, and not only is it game day, it's postseason basketball finally here. Not quite March Madness, but it could be some madness in the SEC tournament in Nashville. Arkansas tips this thing off for Wednesday Sadness. Are we still calling it that? I don't feel like it should qualify anymore. I mean, there's 4 games now instead of 2, and every single one of these games in the opening round of the SEC tournament features a team projected to be in the NCAA tournament field. That doesn't seem too sad to me. These games have consequences. They matter. A lot more exciting than those bottom 4 seeds that used to play in the late night hours on Wednesdays down there in Nashville. Nobody in the crowd watching. Nobody cares. No prospects for those teams to get anywhere. Not the case this time. So kudos to the SEC for spicing it up a little bit with the bracket. Obviously, Arkansas is tipping this thing off against South Carolina. Wow. Okay. Well, where do we start? How about this? Win and you're in for real this time, maybe? Or will it be, okay, Arkansas beat South Carolina. Now, if they just get one more win in Nashville, then they're a lock. And they get that one, and then we add a win. They do that, and they add a win. That seems to be the goalpost shifting, right? But no, in all seriousness, Arkansas is out of any kind of danger whatsoever. Even crazy stuff would be avoidable if they just get it done today against South Carolina. So, it's a quad 2 opportunity here. So, and it's what kind of sucks about it, right? Is you could have faced 14 other teams in this league, and it would have been a situation where you have a quad 1 game because it's a neutral court. But if you got LSU or you drew South Carolina, it was going to be a quad 2. So not a bad loss per se if you took it. But it's also not an opportunity to tack on another super good win. Now, you could add some meat to the bone for the resume, perhaps, and that's fine, I think, because that Georgia win moved up for Arkansas to a Q1. That I think it's a deal where they're actually below 500 or something in quadrant 2, kind of a weird deal, either 2 and 3 or something. So it would help from that standpoint. It wouldn't be a killer loss. It wouldn't be like some of the quad 3s or quad 4s that some of these other bubble teams have taken, but you don't want to lose to South Carolina twice, right? You don't want to do that. So from that standpoint, John Calipari, he might not care about the SEC tournament, but I promise you that the Razorbacks care about righting the wrong that happened in Columbia a couple weekends ago, right? Because that was crazy, man. I mean, they burned the tape or whatever, but it's hard to burn some of the memories that came from that. It was embarrassing, and it was damaging to Arkansas. Frankly, they have made up for the damage that was done with the metrics and their resume and everything like that. But imagine where they would be if they just had not had that complete and utter debacle there in Columbia. We certainly wouldn't be having any of these questions from anybody about whether or not Arkansas is a lock. I mean, that would be crazy talk, but it did happen. So there you have it. I think it's probably the only reason, frankly, that there are some people out there, and it's just a select few, they're not 100% sold on this team just yet. And fair enough. I mean, it was the worst game I've seen Arkansas play in a long time, years, I think. So show up ready to play. Just that baseline part of it, just show up like you're prepared to play a basketball game. And this one already has an entirely different feel, doesn't it? I mean, it would be unbelievable if history repeated itself in terms of Arkansas laying an egg here. I do not expect that to happen whatsoever. And you can look at it and say, well, it was only 2 weeks ago South Carolina beat Arkansas by 19 points. It's not unprecedented at all for their team that got smacked in their first meeting to kind of return the favor in round 2. It's happened this year. Remember those Tennessee and Florida games? Happened with them, where one team won by 25, 30 some odd points. Florida blew Tennessee out the first time they met. Remember that? And then they were shorthanded. Tennessee was in the rematch, and they did the blowing out. So it happens sometimes. Arkansas with Mizzou, for example, a full strength Arkansas team went to Missouri and got beat by, 18, I think was the final margin. Just completely uncompetitive in that game. And Arkansas took care of business and beat them with some margin there, back home in Fayetteville. The series against LSU, for example. Now, those weren't blowouts necessarily, but Arkansas lost that one in just an absolute stinker on the road. And then they win by double digits at home. It happens. And South Carolina is kind of a team of, I would say, extremes based on where they're playing. I mean, we talked about it and joked about it, how they're the last place team in the league, but they're like the freaking Lakers at home. And maybe it's not quite fair to say that they're like the Lakers at home. They're just really, really bad. They're like the Wizards or whatever when they're on the road. And, we remember all those close games in Columbia that we talked about, and, Florida and Auburn and, all those teams, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that they played to one possession or took to overtime or whatever in Columbia. But then they got smacked around quite a bit on the road. Kentucky beat them really bad on the road. Several teams beat them really bad on the road. And we think about the series and how these have worked, the home and homes. Mississippi State, for example, they beat South Carolina in overtime in that game in Columbia, 5-point game. It was a battle. Well, Mississippi State beat them by 35 in Starkville, right? Florida, one of those games that we mentioned, was a 1-point win for the Gators at South Carolina. It was like literally in the final seconds, a layup in transition that won that game for Florida. They escaped with a win there. Go back to Gainesville, Florida beats them by 20. It's very interesting, the splits here. And most teams play better at home, but it's a stark difference for South Carolina. In fact, I got the stats to prove it here. So let's take a look at it. These are just the rankings here for South Carolina, and these are their home splits, right? And so it doesn't jump off the page at you. That's why I said it's probably not fair to call them the Lakers at home. They're just better, way better at home. Top 100 offense and adjusted, efficiency, borderline top 50 defense. So okay, they're all right. But you see a little bit of green mixed in there, and that's what you want to see. Green is good. Red is bad. Well, let's flip this over to what it looks like when they're not playing at their home arena. There's a lot of red, people. There's a lot of red, okay? They're about 100 spots lower in adjusted offensive efficiency. They're more than 30 spots lower in adjusted defensive efficiency. Look at all these. There are 364 teams, by the way, in NCAA Division I basketball. So effective field goal percentage and percentage defense, 334 and 353. That's one of the worst teams in the country. Look at that turnover percentage, 333rd nationally outside their own gym. Look at the shooting, 3-point percentage, 27.5%. We could go on and on and on, but they are way worse away from their home building than they are inside their home building. I mean, it's unbelievable to see the splits there. Now, here's the thing though. It's not just as simple as showing up and playing hard, comparatively speaking to last time. Arkansas no-showed, but to South Carolina's credit, they did impose their will physically. They dominated the paint, and they posed some significant matchup problems for Arkansas on that one, specifically with their guys in the front court. Collin Murray-Boyles and Nick Pringle, so they're 4 and 5, combined for 53 points. That's what Arkansas scored the entire game. So it was a little bit crazy there. Arkansas's got to match physicality much, much better in this game. Looking at you, Big Z, Trevin, Jonas, all those guys. But it's also your guards, because I thought South Carolina did a really good job of getting into the basketball, being physical with Arkansas's guards, and they didn't handle it well. They were back on their heels the entire game. It really needs to be the Razorbacks who set the tone here. The Razorbacks are a top 20 defense in the country all season long. So it should be them that's setting that tone on that end of the floor. The physical play, I think, is key with Nick Pringle. He's not skilled as a big man in there. He's not, but he's tough as nails, and he's super physical, and he will put you under the basket or beat you on the glass if you're soft with him. And that was the case for Arkansas. And that's why he scored their first 6 points, and he wound up with 18, which has to be up there amongst his season high numbers. You can't have a repeat performance of that. That's double what he averages on the year. Can't do it. Speaking of double what he averages on the year, Collin Murray-Boyles is awesome. Really, really good player. He's averaging 16.5 a game. He scored 35 on Arkansas. Now, it's a tough matchup, and he's probably excited that he's not going to have to see a Dude Thero again, because that would be Arkansas's perfect defensive stopper for a guy like this. But we've talked about it quite a bit. When you put a bigger body on him, he faces up and attacks him, drives around him. When you put a smaller body on him, he takes you to the post and works out. Arkansas is going to have a better effort and a better game plan for Collin Murray-Boyles, or he will feast again. Let the dude shoot jumpers if he wants to. But I really think Arkansas could do two things better than they did last time that would help him quite a bit. One, you can't just play behind this dude. You can't. You can't let him get the easy entries on the block or at the elbow. If he gets on the block, he's going to body you, muscle you, up fake, get you in the air, get to the free throw line. I mean, it's easy money. If he catches on the elbow, he's facing and going to work on these guys. And that's what he did the entire game. You have to be in some form of denial there. You cannot allow him to get easy touch after easy touch inside the paint. If you do, it's trouble. It is. Two, I think you got to be willing to send double teams at him. And Arkansas didn't do a lot of that. And you'd like to think you wouldn't have to. What is he, 6'6", 6'7" in there? You've got, 7'2", 6'10", 6'10" guarding him. But he's just crafty and he's skilled. And you're going to have to be willing to bring a little bit of help. Here's the thing about South Carolina and why I think Arkansas should be willing to bring some double teams. Who cares if you help off? Honestly, they only hit 5 threes in that first game against Arkansas, but South Carolina has 2 players on their roster who shot over 30% with at least 1 made 3 per game in SEC play. 2! That's it. If they start burning you and all of a sudden they go gangbusters and they hit 10 on you in the first half or whatever, adjust. But if you can put 2 on their best player without having a significant shooting threat wide open for them to kick out to, why wouldn't you give it a shot? I mean, so if you're denying him, great. But if he's able to get his touches in there, you got to dig down. You got to show a little bit and have a little bit of help. I mean, he's a good player, and it's a mismatch problem for you with your roster as currently constructed. The other thing I'll say is I think Arkansas could do a better job of attacking him on the other end of the floor. I really do. Drag him out there on the perimeter, make him guard a little bit, go at him, dump it into the post to Jonas and let Jonas go to work. Make him foul you. Like, get that dude out of the game, right? Because you do have the size, the length, the athleticism advantage. You need to use that to your advantage and not let his bully ball punish you the way that it did in Columbia. Huge key to the game. I mean, if Collin Murray-Boyles gets his average, okay, fine. If he gets 20, okay, fine. You can't let him go crazy. He was 35, man. I mean, that was nuts. So there you have it. Here's the thing about South Carolina. They do pose matchup problems for Arkansas. They are better than their record shows. We talked about the differences between home and away. Still, though, perspective. This is still a team that scores just 65 points per game and shoots 28.6% from 3 in SEC play. And Arkansas is a team that has been top 3, top 4 in defense in all categories during SEC play. And they're one of the better teams, top 20 teams nationally, defensively. Arkansas should be able to hold these guys down. And you would hope that they score more than 14 points in the first half and they have a better day offensively. This is going to have a completely different complexion than what we saw a couple weeks ago. South Carolina is still the team that's last in the SEC in league games in offensive efficiency, effective field goal percentage. They have the highest turnover rate in the conference. So listen, they feasted on Arkansas in the paint a couple weeks ago. The Hogs missed 1 million shots. Sucks that it happened, but I don't think there's any reason to go into this expecting it to happen again. If it does, we're going to have some very different conversations after the fact, but I'm just not anticipating that being a thing. It's a noon game. Are we as worried about that now? I'm not. I feel a lot better about this, especially no matter how far Arkansas goes in Nashville, every freaking game will be at noon, just the way the bracket shakes out and you're at the top of it. But you feel like they kind of overcame their early tip-off nightmares the last time out against Mississippi State. I mean, you get a top 25 win to close the regular season. That was a big one. They needed that because that's in SEC play. They hadn't won a game that started at noon or one of those early tips. So I feel better about it. I like the idea of those guys being up and at them and energized and with some juice and ready to play. I do. Let's see. Some bold predictions maybe, or just some predictions for how the game might go. Arkansas made 3 baskets from the field in the first half at South Carolina. 3. My goodness. I don't want to talk about it. But we have to. It's like, it's who the Hogs are playing. Here's what I'll say. They made 3 baskets the entire first half. at South Carolina, I will say that Arkansas makes more than 3 baskets by the first media timeout in this game. Complete turnaround, I expect. It took Arkansas 34 minutes in that basketball game at South Carolina to reach 30 points. 34 minutes to get to 30 points. That's crazy. I will go out on a limb and say Arkansas is going to have more than that, more than 30 by halftime in this game. And that it's not even a far-fetched thing to say, but given the circumstances of the last one, well, who knows? Let's see. Collin Murray-Boyles had 35. I think Arkansas keeps him under 20 in this game. That'll be my prediction, my bold prediction. So there you go. What do we need to see from Arkansas? Well, here's the thing. Nobody played well the last time these two teams played. You could sort of argue Carter had some moments. Jonas wound up having a double-double. I think he missed most of his shots around the rim, but he was getting to the free throw line stuff. He was pretty good on the glass. He was okay in that game, but you probably want to hope that everyone is better. But I would say my expectation, I expect a big game from Big Z. And he's been a little bit up and down, a little bit hit or miss here down the stretch of the season. It's good that Jonas is coming on the way that he is, but he really got worked over in that game. And he came across a little bit soft or not as physical as Nick Pringle and those guys in there. He had no answer for Murray-Boyles when he was guarding him. That you should be taking that stuff personally. If they save the film for anybody, it should be Big Z for that, frankly. Is just kind of where I'm at with it. And also, I will point out that he didn't play his best game against Mississippi State the other day. And we were sitting right behind the bench. And one of the common themes when he was coming out was assistant coaches yelling at him saying, you just have to play harder. You just have to be more physical. You have to be tougher. You have to want it more. So they were really, really getting after him there. I expect Big Z to be super motivated in this game. And two things. One, I think he's just going to naturally play more physical and be more of a presence in there around the rim. And he's not going to be pushing guys around in there or anything, but he knows how to play tough. He's got a mean streak to him. He can be a rim protector and a shot blocker in there. Wouldn't it be nice if he got going a little bit from three? When's the last time we had one of those Big Z games where he hit 4 or 5 threes or something? You could tell right away on Saturday against Mississippi State, wasn't going to be one of those games where he was really knocking down threes. It didn't look good coming out of his hand as normal, and it wasn't there. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but I'm expecting a big game from Big Z. And Carter Knox. And he's been playing well. He's been playing hard. He dealt with some foul trouble early against Mississippi State, but I think he's kind of due for a bounce back type of game. He thrives in these physical moments. And I thought he was the one where it stood out to me maybe more than some of the others at South Carolina, to where he just looked like he didn't have his legs. He's so good at being able to rip and drive middle and get guys on his hip and draw contact. He couldn't get by anybody. And he just looked 2 steps slower than he typically does. I think he'll be motivated for this game as well. I expect him to play well, but it's going to be fun. We know that much. I hope that the watch party we have is going to be more fun than the last one was. So no reinforcements, by the way, for this one. Boogie and Adu, both listed as out on the availability report. They both traveled, but I think the writing was kind of on the wall when they went and practiced at Vanderbilt. I guess it was on Monday night, and neither one of them were dressed out. And then they had the open practice at Bridgestone Tuesday. Neither one of them were dressed out for that. So, and that kind of falls in line with what I was told, was that maybe more likely NCAA tournament, at least for one of those guys, than SEC tournament. So I wasn't overly optimistic about the prospects this week. It would have been cool, but we'll see if they're able to work their way back into anything for March Madness next week. But you're going to go get it done with 7. The same 7 guys that went and got their butts kicked in Columbia need to right that wrong in this game for sure. And how much does it matter? I think, in my opinion, and based on everything I've seen, Arkansas should be pretty safe here. If they lose, could there be a scenario where you wind up in Dayton for the first 4? Maybe, yeah, depending on how other bubble teams hold up and if there's any bid stealers or anything like that, you have to keep your eye on. So it might be a situation where you get sent there. But if you win, I really think Arkansas is trending towards maybe a 10 seed at worst. I'm okay with that. Is that the sweet spot, you guys think? A 10 seed for Arkansas as opposed to getting an 8-9 game and having to see one of those ones in the second round? I kind of like the 10. Play a 7. It's going to be a fairly evenly matched game, and then you get one of those 2 seeds. It's a little bit more vulnerable if you get past that. I think I like that idea a little bit better. And it doesn't matter. This used to be a barometer that we would really, really watch, but the selection committee at this point, they've got so many metrics and analytics and all this different stuff going on that they don't even think about win volume when it comes to wins above bubble and strength of schedule and your quad 1 record and everything. But wouldn't you like to see Arkansas get to 20 wins? Win this game, you get to 20. I don't know. 20 just sounds better than 19. Like, I think there's a bigger difference getting to 20 instead of 19 than there is getting to 19 instead of 18. There's just something about that round number, man. So we'll see. Like we said, add a Q2 for the resume, get back to 500 and everything in that particular area. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a watch along for this during the game. Make sure you tap in for that instead of Inside Arkansas Live, because it's right. I mean, the game tips off when we would typically start the show. So we'll be doing the watch along. So come hang out with us, get involved in the chat, react in real time. It's all good. We'll do the Pod at the Palace post-game show after that. Post-game content will be a little bit different if Arkansas wins, right? We'll probably knock out the report card and the player grades and get that stuff out pretty quick, because we would need an Ole Miss preview for the next morning, because that's who Arkansas will face if they're able to get past South Carolina today. So make sure you stay tapped in with us. And I don't know. I can't encourage you to have a drink ready, because it's noon. I don't know how you guys feel about nooners for this one, but whatever calms your nerves in the middle of the day while you're at work, maybe have a little bit of that, because it always gets weird down there in Nashville, and it tends to always get weird when the Razorbacks are involved. So Ben Curtis, Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at Palace. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy the game. Come hang out with us. We'll talk about it afterwards. See you guys later.